Duke of Edinburgh really was one of the greats. Charismatic, occasionally gauche, loyal and steadfast.
Yes, he was all of those things. And I think the last thing you said, steadfast, is probably the most important. The Queen herself, you'll remember, said that he was her strength and stay through all the long years. And that's what he did. This very proud man, this very royal man with lots of royal blood in his veins, put aside his own naval career, which he loved, and stood by the woman he loved, and made it his business to not compete ever with the Queen, but to support her in what was such an onerous job for a young woman of 25 with two young children.
Intriguing as well that after that great lifetime that was clouded a little toward the end by acts of ill health and conditions that took him in and out of hospital, his death certificate, certified by the head of the Royal Medical Household, simply states the cause of death as old age.
Well, yes, he was very, very old indeed, wasn't he? Just a few months off his 100th birthday. A milestone I think probably he would have liked to have marked. But I think that in the end he had, if one can say, a good death. He didn't suffer greatly in the last few weeks, we're told. And he'd lived this wonderful life and passed away peacefully at home with his family around him.
As you implied in your first answer, Jenny, for the Queen, his passing ended, of course, a 73-year marriage, one that began almost as a fairy tale love story between a young princess and her older cousin.
Yes, she was just 13 when she met him properly for the first time. They'd knocked around in royal circles, certainly before that. But when she was 13, she was taken to Dartmouth Royal Naval College, actually just down the road from where I am. I often go past it and think about that meeting. And Prince Philip, the young cadet officer, was delegated to show Elizabeth and Margaret around while their parents did the official bit. And there definitely was some kind of spark right then. Of course, she was very, very young, but I think she set her cap towards him at that very early stage. And then through the war years, they corresponded, and Philip sometimes stayed at Windsor Castle. And I'm told that he, a proud man, a man who hadn't had a normal upbringing, a very nomadic upbringing without parental role models, because the marriage split up and his mother was ill. I'm told that she unlocked a capacity for love in him that had been buried beneath. And I think it was a real love match.
You mentioned there his own background, a royal background, as indeed was the then Princess Elizabeth and Queen Elizabeth. Both royal, but very different backgrounds.
Yes, Prince Philip was, well, he was born in Greece, and then the family had to flee. It was a very complicated background. They bounced between France and Germany and the UK. People said that because he had no role model, he became maybe a little arrogant. He was certainly self-reliant. He was very self-reliant because he had no option when he was young. He said, you know, I was told I had to cross Europe to find my sisters who had married into the German aristocracy. No, nobody helped me. I just had to find my way across. And then when he did get together with Elizabeth, he was viewed as a bit of a foreign interloper, just out for the goodies, one of the Queen's cousins said, actually. But, you know, he had an upbringing which in some ways was grander at that stage, with his sisters married into this fabulous German aristocracy. He stayed in castles and palaces grander than anything over here. So it was a very difficult, troubled, nomadic background, but one that he said made him the man he was.
Yeah, yeah. And Dartmouth itself would have contributed to that, because he did very, very well there and went on to become a genuine national hero in his own right through his wartime service.
Yes, he did. He was mentioned in dispatches. He was honoured. He was evidently very alert, very brave, had active service, and he loved that. And I think he would have risen through the ranks of the Navy had he been allowed to. And at such a young age, to have to give up the career which he loved because he said that in the Navy he found the family that he hadn't had as a young man. Um, and to give it up was a great sacrifice, but he had no choice. I think it was a big blow to him, but he was asked about it in later life. He said, oh, what's the point? What's the point of regretting? Just got to get on with it, which was his great motto, really.
Indeed. Were you struck by the simplicity of the funeral on the 17th of April, which I gather was all his own plan?
I don't think he could have foreseen quite how stripped back it was going to be because of the COVID pandemic. But it certainly would have fitted with his idea that he didn't like a fuss. He certainly didn't like a fuss. He always said, you know, don't talk about yourself. No one's interested in you. Just get on with what you're doing. I thought the funeral, in its simplicity, was incredibly moving. And I think we all felt that. To see the Queen alone, as she had to be because of the pandemic. But the other touches, which was so personal and so the Duke, the carriage and the two black fell ponies standing and watching the Land Rover go by. And in the carriage was his hat, his gloves, his whip, and the red pot that he used to keep the sugar lumps in for his horses, his ponies. It was all very touching and very Duke, actually.
Yes, and we've spent a lifetime in television, but that image so brilliantly captured on the television coverage, the top shot, just looking down at the gloves and the sweeties. But it is worth reminding folk that the carriage riding wasn't just the indulgence of some member of the royal family. He was jolly good at it.
He was really good. I mean, he was such a competitive individual, but he made carriage driving his own. And I think he wrote quite a lot of the rules, the competition rules. And I was speaking to one of his private secretaries once. He said, oh, my goodness me, it's so exciting when the Duke's out carriage driving. One time we were standing watching and waiting for him to come round a corner. And we heard this noise like a train. And all of a sudden, round came the four ponies, and there was the carriage on the side. No Duke there at all. He'd fallen out some yards back. But he got up and brushed himself down and got on again. He took a lot of risk. He did incredibly well. And it's very heartening, I think, that he's passed on that love of carriage driving to his granddaughter, Lady Louise, Prince Edward and Sophie's daughter. And she's inherited the carriage and the ponies and is to be seen about Windsor, riding them to this day.
Yes. And always pointed out to folk who are lucky enough to go to the Royal Windsor Horse Show and see him at it in those days, and being told, if you're of a sensitive disposition, don't stand too close when he goes by because the language can be fruity.
Yes, I'm sure it would. Did you get to see him?
Yes, I did. One of my great joys in life is watching Her Majesty from a distance, and on my part, quite rightly, watching the show ponies. And she remains an absolute expert on rare breeds, but also watching him drive. I mean, just a sensational afternoon.
Yes, and I'm sure the language would be quite fruity because he shot from the hip and he said what he thought. I mean, once he was talking to someone, a keeper of the Privy Purse, I think, and he said, "Look, you're just a silly little Whitehall twit. You don't trust me, and I don't trust you." He wrote afterwards to apologise, but he did say it as it was.
Yeah. You mentioned in a previous answer there Lady Louise, Sophie Wessex and Edward's daughter, inheriting not only the love of the sport, but actually his carriage and his gear, which was just such a lovely touch. But it's also a powerful reminder, isn't it, Jenny, that he had children, he had grandchildren, he had great-grandchildren. He was a towering figure. Was he the boss of the family, if not the head of state?
Yes, I think it was a very wise move by the Queen in the early years of their marriage to realise that this proud man now had to play second fiddle to her, as she's the head of state. So she said, OK, you run the estates, you run Sandringham and Windsor and Balmoral, and there's a lot to do there. And at home, he very much was the head of the family, the man who wore the trousers, made family decisions. Told the Queen sometimes what he thought of her. You know, he was probably, I'm sure he was the only person who could be totally honest with the Queen and say, well, that was a bit daft, darling, wasn't it? And I think she really valued that.
Do you go along with the argument that is made that he had a testy relationship with his eldest son, Charles, not least because he was the heir apparent, that it could sometimes be pretty tough?
Yes, there's no doubt that there was a lot of friction and unhappiness in the early years of Prince Charles's life. He's written about it, he's spoken about it. He felt, I think bullied is too strong a word, but he felt he wasn't living up to his father's expectations, which was for a bit of an action man, I think, a tough young adolescent. And so he was sent to Gordonston in Scotland, the rugged outdoor activity school, the rough and tough of it all, the adventure place, which it just didn't suit Prince Charles. It suited Prince Philip to go there, but he expected his son to thrive in the same way that he did, and that simply wasn't Prince Charles's character. Prince Philip once said that I am a pragmatist, and Charles is a romantic. And sometimes a romantic thinks that a pragmatist is unfeeling. The implication was that he's not unfeeling. He was not unfeeling, but that was Charles's perception. I think in later years, though, they grew much closer. Charles, well, not only a grown man, but a pensioner, got along pretty well with his father. I think there was a mutual respect, particularly on matters like the environment. They didn't see eye to eye necessarily on organic gardening and genetic engineering, maybe not on things like that, but they did get along okay towards the end.
Yeah. There was a rough patch as well with the Earl of Wessex over joining the Marines and not cutting it. But in later life, Edward became his absolute standby, his lieutenant, in the running of the vital Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme. So a bridge was built, there was an understanding, there was a mutual respect between the two of them in the later years.
Yes, again, I'm not sure truthfully what went on when Prince Edward decided to leave the Royal Marines. I mean, there is one school of thought that his father was very disappointed in him. And I've heard others say that actually he was really quite understanding, and he realised that Edward simply wasn't cut out for that kind of life, as Charles had not been cut out for Gordonston. But certainly the fact that Prince Philip handed over his cherished Duke of Edinburgh award scheme to Edward, who now runs it and has done for many years, actually, speaks volumes of what he thought of him.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier on about the shared passion over the environment, although there may have been differences over bits of the plant, but certainly saving the planet and respecting wildlife and all of that. The other thing that it struck me so sharply, not least at COP26, was that they had all inherited the capacity to speak one's mind. The Prince of Wales made one of the most powerful speeches at that gathering, but so too did grandson William.
Yes, and the Queen herself in recent months has mentioned the fact that not only her husband, her late husband, but her son and grandson all stand up for the environment in this impassioned way. And Prince Philip, he was so much ahead of his time in so many ways. He was the environmentalist in the royal family long before, I think, Charles or William thought about it. And he was warning about climate change and making programs on television speaking about it decades ago. And in that way, I suppose he was really a man ahead of his time, which is something we always say about Prince Charles being a man ahead of his time. So, maybe Charles is a bit more a chip off the old block than Philip ever realised.
A huge thank you to Jenny Bond, broadcaster and royal expert, for her reflections on the Duke of Edinburgh there. A steadfast support for the Queen and man ahead of his times in many ways. Now, this year might have been one of sorrow for the Queen, but next year is set to be one of celebration, as Her Majesty marks 70 years of service with an historic Platinum Jubilee. After the break, we'll be looking ahead to the festivities and find out why royal experts believe the Queen handpicked Camilla to take a central role.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for the Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is the Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Welcome back to A Royal Year with me, Alastair Stewart. The Queen has celebrated a number of jubilees during her reign, but none will be as grand nor as historic as the Platinum Jubilee planned for next year. I'll get the inside track on all of the festivities and who's likely to take a central role with royal experts Ingrid Seward and Phil Dampier in just a moment. But first, our reporter Cameron Walker has all the details on the events planned for next year.
In 2022, the Queen will become the first British monarch to celebrate a Platinum Jubilee, marking 70 years on the throne. The royal family will travel around the country for year-long celebrations throughout the UK and the Commonwealth. Perhaps the focal point is the extended bank holiday weekend, planned for early June.
On Thursday the 2nd, the royal family will rise down the Mall from Buckingham Palace behind me to Horse Guards Parade for the traditional trooping of the colour.
This will be followed by an RAF flypast, and for the first time, beacons will be lit in each capital city of the Commonwealth. On the Friday, a service of thanksgiving for the Queen's reign will be held at St Paul's Cathedral. On Saturday, the Queen will attend the Derby at Epsom Downs, and Brits from all over the country have the chance of being invited to Buckingham Palace for a special live concert with some of the world's biggest entertainment stars. Details of a ticket ballot is expected in the new year. On the Sunday, thousands of people from across Britain and the Commonwealth will take part in a pageant combining arts, theatre and costume to celebrate Her Majesty's reign. The British public can feast in a Jubilee lunch, bringing communities closer together.
I declare before you all that my whole life, whether it be long or short, shall be devoted to your service.
When the then Princess Elizabeth made that promise to her people in 1947, she was 21 years old. In her Platinum Jubilee year, the Queen will turn 96, a year of celebrations fits for a lifetime of service.
Joining me now is Ingrid Seward, Editor-in-Chief of Majesty magazine and author of royal biographies, including Prince Philip Revealed. Ingrid, terrific to see you. Just saying the word platinum sends a shiver up my spine. What impact does it have on you as you contemplate a platinum jubilee?
Well, it's something that one has never thought about before. And on February the 6th next year, which is the day that King George VI died, the Queen will have been on the throne for 70 years, which makes it her Platinum Jubilee. I'm sure that she sort of feels, goodness me, have I really been around that long? That's how she would look at it. And on that day, she always spends it, well, we say in quiet contemplation, but we don't really know what she does. But she does always spend it at Sandringham, presuming there's no COVID or restrictions and she's well enough. She always spends it at Sandringham, which is where her father died on that day. So it's really, I would think that the Queen is probably feeling, quite moved by the whole thing. She's deeply religious, and I think she would say, well, I've got to thank God that I'm still fit and able to get on with life. Presuming that she is, of course. We always have to say that now because, since her recent sort of illness, we don't quite know. But presuming she's well enough, she will be saying, thank you, God, for just keeping me going.
I know that you've seen the plans and you've thought about it, probably even been consulted upon it. How will this compare to previous jubilees? Because, of course, she's had a few.
Well, actually, I think people are slightly confused about what is going to happen with this Jubilee because there's lots of plans in motion, but nothing absolutely finalised to be delivered to the public. So basically, the Jubilee starts on the weekend of the Windsor Horse Show, which is the, let me just look, sorry, yes, I beg your pardon. The weekend starts on the 12th to the 15th of May, which is the Windsor Horse Show, one of the favourite few days of the year for the Queen. It's in the grounds of Windsor Castle, and we see all those wonderful pictures of her, walking around, looking at the horses in her headscarf, and, you get some great photographs out of it. But this year, it's going to be the sort of start of the Jubilee, and they're having a pageant, because I think that's the best way of describing it, in the arena every night of the show, culminating on the Sunday night when there'll be a huge pageant for Her Majesty. Again, showing all her favourite animals, her horses, probably some of her children and grandchildren in the arena riding. Won't be the same as last time, because the theme this time is from Elizabeth I to Elizabeth II. And Stephen Fry quoted it as a gallop through history. So I think it will be very, very theatrical. And it's also the 75th anniversary of the independence of India. So there's going to be a Bollywood theme to it. So if you like pageants and you like horses, this is very, very much for you. But it is for the Queen. It is for her. And she loves all that sort of thing. So, and other people are going to be able to enjoy it as well. So I think that's the kickoff. And that's in May. Then in June, we have the actual celebration, which starts with Trooping the Colour. And it will be, the whole family on the balcony. We don't know about Harry and Meghan, but there'll be the whole royal family will be there. And then that starts it all off. And then there will be a huge celebration at Epsom on Derby Day, followed by a concert at Buckingham Palace in the evening. And previous to that, there'll be the service of Thanksgiving. Now, sadly, this time we won't see the Queen in the state coach because it's a bit rickety and a bit, I think it's probably had its sort of useful days, and it's also very uncomfortable for Her Majesty. And I think people don't, feel that she would be better going there in a limousine. Sad for all of us, but I think that's just the way things are at her age, especially. And then on the following day, there's going to be another pageant, but this time through the streets of London. And this is where we're not quite sure, but they're promising us horses and soldiers and music. And of course, this is where the Commonwealth comes into it. So there will be parades of people from the Commonwealth, but what form it's exactly going to take, we don't know.
How significant in your mind is the significant role that's been given to Camilla?
Well, I think the Queen is going to need all the support that she can get. And I feel that because Camilla and she share so very many interests, basically they're both country women. And I think that she will be therefore very much at the Queen's side during all this, as a sort of female supporter, if you like. And I think that the Queen is full of respect for Camilla and the way she's handled what, was a very, very difficult start, and she was extremely unpopular.
Interesting to note that Anne, Princess Royal, has stepped even more to the fore, and Sophie Wessex has come in there and performed quite brilliantly in support. It's the powerful women around a powerful woman.
It is. Well, it's the matriarchal society. I think that Princess Anne has always, well, I mean, because you know her, Alastair, and she's always been there doing things. But I think that we've because we don't have Harry and Meghan and we don't have the Duke of York, and basically we don't really have his daughters, the focus has really switched back onto the Princess Royal, which I'm really glad about because she's terrific and people like her. I mean, she's not glamorous, but she's hardworking and is, I think, perhaps after the death of Prince Philip, you see so much of Prince Philip in her that, the way she looks at things, the way she deals with things, the way she deals with, giving speeches. She's absolutely brilliant. And I think Sophie Wessex is basically the same. She's always been there, always looking good. She is very glamorous, but I think we've just chosen to focus on her more now because there are less royals around. It's a narrower field, and the Duke and Duchess of Gloucester are doing much more. Maybe they're not, but it's just that we notice them, and also the Duke of Kent. So I think it's almost back to the original.
Look ahead to the Platinum Jubilee, which, whatever 2021 held, is an extraordinary event, literally an historic occasion.
Yeah, well, they're saying it's going to be bigger than Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee. I don't think it's going to be quite as good, actually, as the Diamond Jubilee for the Queen. We're certainly not going to have a river pageant like we did before when, of course, Prince Philip sadly got ill with a bladder infection a few days later. But it's going to be tremendous. It starts off in May with something called a Gallop Through History. It's going to be a massive, great horse event at Windsor Castle. I think there's going to be 500 horses and 1,000 people taking part. And I think we might even see some members of the royal family taking part in it. Princess Anne, Zara Phillips, of course, great equestrians, and possibly Lady Louise Windsor riding a carriage. So that kicks it off in May. And I think the Queen might enjoy that more than any of the other events, actually. And then in June, we've got 4 days, the bank holidays, May bank holidays being moved to that. We've got Trooping the Colour, and we've got a fly past, we've got a service of Thanksgiving, and then we've got street parties. So it's all there. And right slap bang in the middle of it is the Derby. And of course, the one thing that would be the icing on the cake would be if the Queen could get a Derby winner. Now, she should have a horse running. It's called Reach for the Moon. I probably put the mockers on it a couple of months ago because I put a bet on it at Doncaster and it finished second, would you believe? Lost a few quid. And it's now got an injury. It's out for the rest of the season. Before that, it was the second favourite for the Derby. Frankie Dettori's on it. So they're hoping to get it fit for next year. And if that horse races and wins, well, it'll just be the Queen will be over the moon, reaching for the moon and over the moon.
We shall watch that with great, great interest. You're so right. And successes at the racetrack have yielded some of the very best pictures of Her Majesty really going for it with the car.
She's won all the classics. She's won all the classics, but the Derby's always eluded her. And if she could get that, that really would be fantastic.
Absolutely. I don't want to dampen the tone, but you're a journalist. You'd expect me to be asking this as well. Your lovely explanation of what is to look forward to in the Platinum Jubilee, particularly the Royal Windsor Horse Show. But with Duke of York facing the troubles that he did, although he does deny all charges, and Harry out of favour and threatening the book and what have you, Is it your prediction that they will be excluded from these activities so as not to be a distraction?
I really don't think anybody knows at this point. I'm on record as saying that I personally don't think that Meghan is ever going to come back to this country. I think she's probably realising that she's not very popular here now, and it could be a very embarrassing situation. So it wouldn't surprise me if she doesn't come, but Harry might come. As you say, we've got the ongoing problem with Prince Andrew and the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, seeing if he gets dragged into that. So I don't expect to see Andrew on the balcony at Trooping the Colour, although there was a report the other day saying that he wants to try and make some kind of royal comeback with a Falklands 40th anniversary Falklands event next year. So he might try and come in through the back door on that. But I think really at the moment he's probably finished as a working royal, and he's not going to be seen in public very much. So those two are difficult problems. Whether Harry will come back, I just don't know at the moment. I think nobody's quite sure. But I'm sure the Queen will invite him. But whether he thinks he want to come with or without Meghan, very difficult to say.
The nation's loyalty to the Queen is extraordinary. I mean, whether you look at pictures of people turning out to see her on great occasions or, more boringly but accurately, look at the opinion polls, it's rock solid for her. Does that surprise you?
It's gone up and down over the years. There was a period in the 60s where the monarchy wasn't terribly popular. There was a period, obviously, in the early 1990s with all the divorces and the scandals where her popularity went down a bit, and obviously after Diana died. So she's had her problems, but I think people just admire her duty, her sense of duty. She's been the one sort of beacon of hope there that everyone's looked to during the pandemic. She's just a fantastic leader. You know, she's above politics. I know that some people from Republic, the monarchy, the anti-monarchy group will tell you she's not above politics, but I think basically most people think that she's not political, and they just admire the fact that she's had this incredible stickability, and I don't think she'll ever abdicate. I think she'll see it right through to the end as she's promised. And it's just quite remarkable. And Jubilees always do boost the popularity of the Queen and the monarchy in general. So I'm sure there'll be a massive boost next year as well.
A big thank you to Ingrid Stewart and Phil Dampier for sharing their thoughts with us. It certainly is set to be an historic occasion and a year to remember. And while some members of the royal family, as we heard there, are stepping up, other royals have been in the spotlight this year for all the wrong reasons. After the break, we'll get Charles Ray's take on Harry and Meghan's official exit and that Oprah Winfrey interview. Plus, what's next for Prince Andrew and the civil sexual assault case in the United States.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to A Royal Year with me, Alastair Stewart. Now, while some royals, like Sophie Wessex and Camilla, Duchess of Cornwall, have been in the spotlight for all the right reasons this year, some royals have found themselves the centre of controversy. Our reporter Cameron Walker has the details.
Harry and Meghan's 2-hour interview with Oprah Winfrey's left the royal family with its biggest crisis for generations. The Duchess of Sussex publicly accused an unnamed royal of racism after they raised concerns with Harry about how dark their son's skin might be when he was born.
We're very much not racist.
The couple later clarified it wasn't the Queen or Prince Philip. Meghan also said she considered suicide and claims she had no help from the institution for her mental health struggles. The Queen was forced to respond to the allegations. In the palace's words, recollections may vary.
During the interview, Prince Harry claims he was cut off financially by his father, the Prince of Wales. But a spokesperson for Clarence House says that they were given a substantial sum of money when the Sussexes decided to step back as senior royals.
But in March, the Times newspaper reported Meghan allegedly drove out 2 assistants and humiliated staff, which she denies. Buckingham Palace has launched an investigation. Meghan's since released a children's book and appeared on an American chat show where she pranked the public. She had to apologise to a court, forgetting she authorised an aid to brief authors of a controversial royal biography. Many also criticised the Duchess for lobbying American politicians for paid parental leave. Prince Harry also helped launch a report to tackle fake news.
There's only one of us telling the truth, and I know that's me.
Meanwhile, the Queen's son, Prince Andrew, is facing a civil sexual assault case in the United States over claims by Virginia Giuffre that he had sex with her when she was 17 years old. For weeks, Prince Andrew appears to avoid being served legal papers, retreating to his mother's private Balmoral estate. Lawyers representing him have since said the prince never sexually abused or assaulted Miss Giuffre and claim she is seeking another payday at Andrew's expense. The Duke of York denies all the allegations made against him. The trial will likely take place late next year.
I'm delighted to be joined now to discuss that by the former royal correspondent, court correspondent of the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Charles, the most difficult year for the Queen since the death of Diana?
Yes, I would say it is the most difficult year since then. You know, in 1992, she described that as her annus horribilis. Well, this is annus horribilis 2. I mean, well, with everything that's happened, you know, the death of the Duke, the fact that Harry and Meghan are now living in Montecito, the fact that the Duke of York is in legal turmoil. It's not been a great year, plus the fact the Queen at 95 is starting to feel the aches and pains of old age.
Let's start with Meghan and Harry, and we'll come to Andrew, Duke of York, in just a moment. I think most people, if they've got long enough memories, will think that this is the fairy tale that unravelled.
Yes, I mean, she was welcomed into the royal family right at the start. I mean, this was the dream couple. You know, all the things that she had about her, she was an actress, she's mixed race, she's beautiful. Coming into the royal family, an American. Let's not forget, we haven't had an American in the royal family that's survived that much, to be perfectly honest. So we were really hopeful. I mean, when you saw the couple out on jobs, out on royal duties, the crowds, it was back to the Diana days. They were 10, 15 deep. They loved it. They loved the couple. And then all of a sudden, it was up sticks and gone.
Some have said it was a mixture, not least by her, but perhaps by Harry as well, of misjudgments and ultimately disloyalty.
I think that's probably fair, but I also think that I never subscribed to this before, but the more and more I think about it, I think it's probably a key factor that Meghan wanted to be more than just a member of the royal family. You see, you've got to remember that if you are in the royal family, there is a pecking order. There is the Queen, there is the Prince of Wales, and then there's the Duke of Cambridge, and then there is the Duke of Sussex and their various wives. And so when things are happening for one of them, you don't upset the apple cart by announcing or doing something that's going to take away the value of what they're doing. I don't think Meghan could take that and be number 4 in the pecking order. It's a very strange attitude because she was very much loved. You know, I know they keep on saying about how there was racial accusations about various members of the royal family, and there's no doubt that the Twitter social media was giving them a real hard time. But we all get a hard time on Twitter. You know, you just got to ignore it, to be perfectly honest. You can't live
You
by
either
it.
ignore it or you really
Shut it
go
off.
for it. And in their case, it was the Oprah Winfrey interview in March.
Yes.
Where things that you've referred to, briefings against and accusations of racism, what have you, I mean, in my experience, arguably the most explosive interview. I mean, even bearing in mind Bashir and Diana,
I agree.
This was just extraordinary.
It was, and the thing was as well, this was Meghan's truth, not the real truth. This was Meghan's version of what went on. And if you remember, she actually, I mean, I nearly fell off the chair when she said that they'd been married 3 days before the official wedding. And you just think, well, hang on a second, you can't do that in this country. And they didn't get married. They had a rehearsal, like most couples have a rehearsal. And all sorts of other things as well. The allegation that someone questioned what Archie would look like because of her mixed race. I just felt that, why are you doing this? You can't say that sort of thing, because what was probably said, I mean, I don't know, but what was probably said was, I wonder what he's going to look like. But you say that about most babies. Is he going to look like dad? Is he going to look like mum? Is he going to look like granddad? It's incredible what she turned down. And what was even worse was that they then left a royal Cluedo game as to who is the racist. And then they got Oprah Winfrey to brief the following day that it wasn't the Queen and it wasn't Prince Philip. So you're then left with Charles, William, Camilla, Catherine as the senior royals, and that's a terrible indictment.
Let's move on to Uncle Andrew, as it were, the Duke of York, and a year of further sex allegations against him, which, as we've often discussed on the programme, he, of course, absolutely denies. But surely this is the worst trouble that an individual member of the royal family has potentially been in.
In my lifetime, I've never seen a member of the royal family this deep in the doo-doo as Andrew has become, for a number of reasons. I mean, as you quite rightly say, he denies all the allegations. He has no recollection of this woman, yet there is a picture that exists of him with his arm around her, and he actually sent his attack dogs, his legal team, in to have a go at the victim. As well, which is, you know, pretty nasty. The court case is going to be next year, and I firmly believe that no matter what happens, that Andrew will not come out of this at all well. Even if the court clears him of these allegations, that the stench on Andrew will remain forever. He cannot escape, and I do not believe that we will ever see Prince Andrew in a position again of representing the royal family.
It's intriguing to reflect as well that the Newsnight interview with Emily Maitlis is 2 years ago now, and you've just said the court case will be heard next year. 3 years on, despite the fact that the Duke of York said to Emily Maitlis, it didn't happen, I can absolutely categorically tell you it never happened. I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady, none whatsoever.
He may well be telling the truth. That's why we're going to have the court case. And I look forward to hearing what the allegations are and what evidence there is that Prince Andrew actually knew this girl, if there is evidence. And whatever happens, it's going to do him irreparable damage, and the royal family, that none of them are going to come out of it at all well. You know, they'll get smeared with a little bit of what happens. As I said, even if Andrew is clear, we have to remember he is innocent until proven otherwise.
Quite right. A massive thank you to Charles Ray, former royal correspondent at The Sun. Now, it's certainly been a turbulent year for the royal family, but what was your most memorable moment? GB News reporter Cameron Walker found out.
Meghan and Harry, it's mainly bad.
Why Meghan and Harry?
Just everything surrounding them, innit? It's like the bad press, bad publicity, all of it. It's just poor.
Because I think they've disgraced the royal family, and the further away they are, the better.
Meghan coming out and telling us what she went through in the family. So that was, I mean, coming from a minority background, that kind of stayed.
There was no interaction. She just let them speak and say things, and it was clearly shown afterwards that there's a lot of inaccuracies.
The death
of Prince Philip?
Yes, quite a figure. Sad to lose him, but he had a good age.
I think she's coping so far pretty well, but it must be hard for her, you know, when you lose a partner for 73 years.
I suppose the good things is the births they've had in the family. It's got to keep the Queen happy, I'm sure, having some new grandchildren.
Some interesting comments from you there. Well, finally, what better way to round off this programme than with a look ahead to what the future might hold for the royal family? What does the future of the royal family look like to you?
Well, I think we're seeing and living through a period of transition in the royal family now. I don't think the Queen is going to abdicate, but I think we are going to see her staying away from the limelight a little bit more than we have until now. I think she's going to let the younger generation go out and about, tread the pavements, shake the hands, and she, a modern monarch in this modern age of modern technology, can stay in touch, but remotely through the remote media that we all have now. So I think that's what we're seeing, handing over more direct responsibilities to the younger members of the royal family, but she's going to stay there as our head of state and at the helm of that family.
Lately, we've seen her, out and about, all right, maybe on a Zoom camera and whatever else, but she's 95, she's still doing royal jobs. There's not many people still working at 95. And it's great to see other members of the royal family, like the Prince Charles and Camilla, William and Catherine, as well as Edward and Sophie, stepping up to the plate and helping her out. It's really great to see that, and I think they'll be doing a lot more of that in 2022.
The future for the royal family is going to be their unity. And I think this year has been very difficult for them. And it's been a bit wobbly. But I think that next year, 2022, the future looks good. There's a few things coming up, which they probably rather didn't. But I think they're going to be seen to be very much together. And people will be saying, isn't the Queen wonderful? And how can she be so full of energy and verve and things at the age of 95 or coming up to 96 in April? And I think there'll be a great surge of respect for the Queen and therefore for the royal family.
I think the future is bright as long as William and Kate keep it together, and they've been doing as well as they have been. And Charles and Camilla are, Camilla's becoming a lot more popular. And whenever she goes on tours with the press, she handles them extremely well, and her image has rocketed, and I think she's doing a really good job. But at the end of the day, Charles is 73, she's 74, so it's not going to be easy for them. It's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of hard work, and I think the key to it, really, to be honest, is William, Kate and their family. They are really the thing that's going to hold it together in the future.
Well, there you have it. A bright future for the monarchy and a lot to look forward to next year. You've been watching A Royal Year with Alastair Stewart, and what a pleasure the last hour has been. I thoroughly enjoyed sharing it with you. Wishing you all the very best for the holiday period. From all of us at GB News, bye-bye.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else, I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Good evening, everybody. Happy Christmas, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to GB News at Christmas. I'm Patrick Christys, of course, and thank you for joining me for a fun-filled, hopefully anyway, 2 hours where we'll be dissecting some of the stories of the day, while, of course, reacting to the news of tomorrow with my esteemed panel. I am joined, and thank you very much for giving up their Christmas Day evening. It's former Liberal Democrat MP Lembit Opik, ladies and gentlemen. Fantastic. The political commentator, he's clapping himself, by the way. Political commentator Andre Walker and Peymana Assad as well, a Labour councillor and the first person of Afghan origin elected to public office in the UK. Fantastic. Well, you should be applauding her, Lembit, you know. There we go. All right, we're away. So anyway, now it's about time in the evening where the turkey is eaten. The presents will be unwrapped, won't they, everybody? Everyone's now curling up on the couch for some well-deserved telly and maybe a little glass of something or two as well. So we want you to send in your pictures, if that's okay, of your sleeping relatives, right? So everyone will be conked out on the couch now. I'm sure they will be. Look, I'm sure there's some laws against this, but it doesn't matter, it's Christmas Day, isn't it? Go up to them, get a sneaky picture. We want to see people who've had too many Brussels sprouts. We want to see people who've had a bit too much turkey, maybe a couple too much glasses of wine as well. But there we go. Send them in to gbviews@gbnews.uk. We want to see your Christmas setting, everybody. That's right. But before we get started, let's get the news with the one and the only Karen Roberts. Happy Christmas, Karen.
And happy Christmas to you, Patrick. This is your news at 10 o'clock. An armed intruder has been arrested in the grounds of Windsor Castle, where the Queen is celebrating Christmas. Police say the 19-year-old man didn't enter any buildings and there's no danger to the wider public. Meanwhile, in a moving Christmas Day message, the Queen reflected on the loss of her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh. Her Majesty said after the death of her beloved Prince Philip in April, she's drawn great comfort from the warmth and affection in tributes from the country, the Commonwealth and around the world.